Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, I'm Jamie B. I read a ton of books, and this is the first day of our read along for David McCullough's 1776. Because it's July, it'll be July 4th in a couple days. Seems like a good time to be reading it, especially since this year is the 250th birthday for the United States. So it's nice to see where we came from. So for the first day, we were reading the first chapter, which I did. My trusty little bookmark is barely moved. It looks like the first chapter is literally like 19 pages. So it wasn't a lot of reading. But just kind of set the scene. So we meet King George, which is interesting because if you're familiar with the story from things like Hamilton and a lot of other popular accounts, King George is always represented as being insane. And apparently he did have a hereditary disorder later in life that did compromise his capacity in some way, but not at the time that the story opens. So he wasn't insane when the revolution started. And he actually was a well-educated and interesting sounding person. Not a bad king. So it's interesting getting that perspective, because you really do get a very different idea of who King George especially is in this account versus some of the others that are more maybe skewed or biased, pro-American bias. Yeah, doesn't mean we need a king, but he wasn't a bad one, maybe. So we have the big version of the book, and I have not opened the special documents in this yet. So this is the illustrated edition of 1776. So starting out, we have a portrait of somebody. Not George Washington, though, I know that. The introduction to the illustrated edition talks about the value of art in history and some of the painters that were responsible for us knowing what these people look like, because there was no photography yet. So here is George Washington. He reminds me of a friend of mine that I used to work at a Boy Scout camp with, which is kind of fun. I like some of these images and concepts of these historic figures when they were younger, because you always think of them as these venerable older men who've already done all this stuff, and most of the American Revolution involves quite a range of ages of people, and some of them were young. So I like that part. And we have a quote from George Washington: "Perseverance and spirit have done wonders in all ages." So when the story opens, initially the rebels were not trying to get independence. And I like this image of an early flag. It's not actually a flag, it's a painting, I believe. But it's a flag emblem that was the 13 colonies and the British flag. They were still at this point trying to just get rights that they thought they were being denied as British citizens. So the independence part had not come yet. And we have the king. He looks very French to me. Kind of pouty lips and just, yeah. The get up is also very smothering. I suppose if you're in a winter with no interior heating, all of a sudden all the fur and everything would be nice. I'm glad I'm not the king. So the illustrated edition has all sorts of pictures through it. If you get a chance to play with one, there's a lot of small pictures in addition to the big flashy ones. So you really get a sense of what it looks like as we're going through this story, and who these people are. There's a dramatic painting of one of the battles in the Revolutionary War with some very unhappy soldiers that are, maybe not expired yet, but they're not happy. So these are the images, some of the images that are coming back to Britain about this war. Keep in mind, there's no photography. This is the equivalent of those war photographs that we see from places. And so this is coming back to the British citizenry, and they're concerned about what their government is getting into, because it's expensive. And maybe some of them are a bit sympathetic to the cause anyway. Let's see if I can open this. There we go. So I'm opening the vellum envelope for this chapter. We have a couple documents in here. They are replicas of things. So first we have a replica of His Majesty's Most Gracious Speech to both Houses of Parliament on Friday, October 27, 1775. So very much as if we just pulled it from the newspaper. And this is from Philadelphia, January 8, 1776, 10 o'clock a.m. By an express just arrived from New York, we have His Majesty's Most Gracious Speech to both Houses of Parliament on Friday, October 27, 1775. London, October 8. Okay. London, October 28, 1775. So all these dates, this had to go from England when the speech happened to the United States by boat. And so it takes a while for these things to get from England to the United States. So it's delayed just a little bit before it gets to the colonies. So the speech was given on Friday, October 27. The text was written out October 28, so the next day. And then the print version that we're seeing this replica of is from a January 8 publication in Philadelphia. So now we're finally reading the King's Speech. I feel like I should do like hear ye, or something. But I wonder how often they would be having someone read things out loud. The literacy rate in the United States might have been a bit higher, but I'm not sure. So there might still have been town criers reading out these things. I don't know. That's something to pay attention to for later. Yesterday, about noon, His Majesty went from the Queen's Palace to St. James's, attended only by 2 footmen behind his coach. About 10 minutes before 2, His Majesty got into the state coach, attended by the Duke of Ancaster and Lord Bruce, and proceeded to the House of Peers. It's a little fun because there's S's in places that they look like F's. So if you've read any of the older script, it can take some gymnastics of the brain to keep up with. We're being seated on the throne, and a message having been sent to the Commons requiring their attendance, His Majesty opened the present session of Parliament with the following speech. And then we get his speech, which I might read as a separate video, but not in this, because it's a bit long. But yeah, so he basically says that they're rebels, that it's the duty of Britain to put down the rebels. His perspective is that the rebels are a minority, and most of the colonists really are pro-Britain. And if he just puts down these rebels, then peace will return to the land and all will be well. And they'll continue to have the money they're expecting. It may or may not work out that way. All right. And so then we also have in this packet some architectural details, which I'm guessing go with the White House, but I'm not sure. We'll find out. So there's that. Very oldie worldy, like Greek Roman inspired, of course. So we're not really seeing a break from European culture and Britishness yet. We're still very much British subjects that are maybe acting out a little bit. And I will, at some point, probably with better lighting and when I'm awake, because all those S's that look like F's are going to throw me off if I try to read a whole speech. It only took about like half an hour or so for him to give the speech. So it's not super long, but it does deserve its own video. Maybe I'll try and get into an accent for it or something. You guys can see how spotty my accents really are. But yeah, so that's one of the fun things about this book is the illustrated edition, this fancy one, has these documents in these vellum sleeves. So we'll see if there's anything else in chapter 1. We have Charles James Fox. He actually is kind of cute. Reminds me of a few friends of mine. And then we're on to chapter 2. So, yeah, that's kind of what we're going to do for the week. I'm sure there'll be a lot more documents in some of the other sleeves. Just knowing what we're getting into story-wise, there are 37 document things in here. So there's multiple for each time we open an envelope. And some of the chapters are a little bit longer. Chapter 1 was just getting us in. So now we're in. Yeah, and the next envelope feels fat. So I'm curious to see what's in it. It should be fun. So for tomorrow, before tomorrow's video like this, we'll be reading chapter 2, which in my standard hardback edition of this book, chapter 2 is a bit longer. We start on page 20 and we end on page 69. So that's a bit more reading. Don't worry if you fall behind. I'm reading on this schedule so that I can be ready to open the things. But obviously, if you're reading slower, there may be more time for you to read on a later day, and we're not grading anybody here. But it's a fun book so far. I like the tone. It's storytelling, not just names and dates and places, which is kind of my minimum standard for history writing. But I'm enjoying this one so far. So let me know if you are joining along for this read along. And did you get chapter 1 finished? And what did you think of it? And would you be a loyalist or a rebel, do you think? That's one of those things that if we were in the colonies 251 years ago, we would be having to make that decision. Are we British, which at the time would be the government that we'd been in all this time, or are we Americans? And what does that mean? And for some areas, the rebels are more of a minority. And for some communities, it seems like kind of a long shot and things aren't that bad. And why do we want to go to war? Because we're fine. So it's not like it was an easy sell everywhere to convince everyone to join the rebellion and leave the safety of the British Empire. So it's fun to think about, where you would stand. So imagine that your state decided to secede from the Union. We've had that experience before too. What does it take for you to decide to be a member of the rebellion instead of staying with your country that you've been patriotic for however long? It's an interesting question. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next video. And we will get into chapter 2. And there may be other videos coming from me besides this series as well. The whole TBR needing to be made thing and wrapping up last month. So there may be more than just chapter 2 video and reading the speech. But yeah, there will be lots of videos coming. I will see you tomorrow for more videos and more history fun. Bye, guys.